Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the factoring component of Chapter 5. So Section 5.1 and 5.2 was polynomials and simplifying them. So now we're factoring. And factoring is kind of like the opposite to what we were doing. So when a polynomial is factored, right, it's written as a product of polynomials. And what product is multiplication. So when we factor something is we're changing a polynomial that we're adding and subtracting like this, and we're changing it so now we are multiplying it. So this is what you had in section 5.1 and 5.2. You had the factored form, and then you took this 2, you multiplied it in, so you got 2x, and then you did 2 times 3, and you got 6. So you came up with the polynomial. So you went from factored form to the polynomial. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go from the polynomial to factored form. So we're going to so a polynomial that's being expressed as addition in this example will now be multiplication. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing for the remainder of chapter 5. So we're going to start with common factoring. Now, there are some steps that you can follow to help you find the greatest common factor. So what you need to do to find the greatest common factor is that you look at the coefficients and you look for the largest number that divides evenly into the coefficients. Okay? Then you look to see if the variable is present, and it must be present in all the terms. Okay, and then you include the value with the lowest exponent. And these steps will make more sense when we do some examples. So let's look at this polynomial for a moment. You look at your coefficients, the 2 and the 6. You look for the largest number that divides evenly into both 2 and 6. And that number is 2. So that's where this 2 comes from. Then you look at the variable x. Is it present in all the terms? And the answer to that is no, so don't include it. So my greatest common factor between 2x and 6 is 2. Then what I do is I put a bracket, and then I take that common factor 2 and divide this 2x by 2. So 2x divided by 2 is x, so that goes there. And then 6, and I divide it by 2 and I get 3. And that's how that 3 came. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Now, the way so we're going to be factoring it. Sometimes your book will say express as a product, which really means the same thing. Okay, so here's my polynomial. I look at my coefficients 5 and 20. I look for the largest number that divides evenly into both of them, which is 5. Then I look at the then I look at the variable. X squared and x, and I say it, and I ask myself, is the variable present in all the terms? And the answer is yes. So in your common factor, you include the one with the lowest exponent value. This has a 2, this has a 1, so the lowest exponent is a 1, so my greatest common factor is 5x. Now I do a bracket. The result of dividing each term here by 5x is what goes in the bracket. So I take, and you can just do this in your head, so I'm just going to write it here for a moment. You take 5x squared and you divide it by 5x, right, which is my common factor. So I know 5 divided by 5 is 1. X squared divided by x, so here bases are the same and I'm dividing, so I subtract my exponents. So here I have an x with an exponent of 1, and I put that in the bracket. Then I do the same thing here. 20x divided by 5x. I know 20 divided by 5 is 4. Because it's positive, I write plus. I know x over x, that's going to cross out, right? It's going to have an exponent 0, which is just 1. And then there is my answer. I can always check that I'm right by expanding it or multiplying, and I should get my answer back. Okay? And the reason why we include the one with the lowest exponent value, if we included the largest exponent value and I had a 2 here, well, what would happen here when I'm subtracting bases that are the same? I have 1 take away 2, which would give me negative 1. So that is why you always include the lowest exponent values. Otherwise, you're going to end up with negative exponents. And I'm done. So let's have a look at this one. 12 8 and 14. Look for the largest number that divides evenly into all three of those. And you should tell me it's 2. Okay, now look at the A. Is it present in all? Yes, so include it. The lowest exponent is 1, so I include the A. Now I look at B. Is it present in all? No, don't include it. C, present in all? No, don't include it. D? No, don't include it. Only include what's in present in all. There's my common factor 2A. So now you're going to take each of these terms and divide it by 2A. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. These A's cross out, so I'm left with a B. Then you do the same thing with 8 divided by 2A. 8 divided by 2 is 4. These A's cross out, 4C. Then do the same thing with the minus 14AB, AD. So that's -7. These A's cross out, D. And that's it. You can always check to see that you're right by expanding it, which is the opposite to factoring. Expanding meaning that you multiply. Okay, so let's look at a couple more. Do the same idea. 16, 12, and 8. The largest number that goes into all of them is 4. Now look at your x. Is it present in all? Yes. Include the lowest exponent value. So this is a 4, this is a 3, this is a 2, so 4x squared. Now look at y. Is it present in all? No. Don't include it. You have a bracket now. Divide each of your terms by 4x squared. So 16 divided by 4, 4. X to the exponent 4 divided by x squared. Bases are the same, so you subtract your exponents. So there's a 2 here. -12 divided by 4, -3. X to the exponent 3 divided by x to the exponent 2. Again, bases are the same. You subtract your exponents. So there'll be an x here, and then include that y. And then 8 divided by 4, 2. This is x squared, this is x squared. So same number, that's going to simplify to a 1. And then the y. Okay. Next one, do the same thing. 4, 6, and 8. The biggest number that divides evenly into all of them is 2. Now look at x. Is it present in all? Yes. Lowest exponent is a 1. Y, present in all? No, don't include it. Now divide everything by 2x. So 4 divided by 2, 2. X to the exponent 3 divided by x. Again, bases are the same. Subtract those exponents, so you have a 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. This is x squared, this is x. Subtract the exponents, you have a 1. -8 divided by 2, -4. X, those cross out. The exponent 0. Remember that just becomes a 1. And then it's like multiplying by 1, so no change. And then the y. And then you're done. Go for a pause. So for the next couple of questions, you have to understand something in terms of whenever you divide a number by itself, like 7/7, we know that simplifies to a 1. Something like y/y simplifies to 1. What if we have something like this? X plus 4, divide that by x plus 4. Because this binomial is exactly the same, this again, this x is the same number as this x, and then we're adding 4 to it. This again simplifies to a 1. So you have to understand this in order to do the next few questions. Okay? So here, again, we're looking for the common factor. Now with E and F, I can't use these steps. Okay, I can't use these steps for these ones here because what is common, and hopefully you can tell me what's common between this term here and this term here, is the bracket. This has w plus 1 and this term has w plus 1. So this is the common factor now. So w plus 1 is the common factor. You have to put a bracket around it. Now you're going to take this term here and divide it by w plus 1. It's the same as this x plus 4 over x plus 4. w plus 1 divided by w plus 1 is still equal to 1. They cross out. So here, when I take 4x, w plus 1, and divide it by w plus 1, I'm going to just be left with the 4x. And then here, I take 5y w plus 1 divided by w plus 1, and I'm left with the 5y. And now I am finished. So if the brackets are the same, the bracket is your common factor. What you're going to have left in the other bracket is just the numbers that are in front of the bracket. So 4x plus 5y. And the brackets have to be identical. You can't have one positive, one negative. They have to be identical. Same idea here on F. Again, I look and I notice my brackets are identical. I got a minus b and a minus b. So that becomes my common factor. Okay, what's left in the other bracket? It's going to be 2x minus 3. And that's it. Okay. So the last two have to do with factoring by grouping. So if I tried doing these steps here, I would notice that I do not have the s variable present in all. I don't have x present in all or y, and the largest coefficient that goes into all of them is 1. So it looks as though this can't be factored, but it can be. And what you do is you group them. You group the first two together, and you group the last two together. And you're going to look for the common factor between the first two terms. So if I look at sx and sy, I notice the s is the same. So I take that out, divide each term by s, so I'm left with x plus y. Okay, because I divided them both by s. Whatever this sign is comes down, so I have a plus sign here. Now I look at the common factor between 3x and 3y. So I look at 3 and 3. The largest number that goes into both of those are 3. X and y are not present in both, so I don't include it. So I take 3x divided by 3, and I'm left with a x. 3y divided by 3, I'm left with a y. Even though you did some factoring, you're not done because of this addition sign. So you got to, again, keep going. You should notice after you've grouped the first two terms and the last two terms together that your brackets are the same. If your brackets are not the same, you probably made a mistake somewhere. So I take my bracket out as my common factor, x plus y. What's left in the other one? The s, and then the plus 3. You know you are done. When there is no addition and subtraction sign in between these brackets, it is now multiplication, because that's what factoring is, and that's it. Okay, let's look at the last one. Again, I'm going to group these two together and these last two together. I look at I look at 1 and 3, look for the biggest number that goes into both, and it's 1. B is present in each, so I include it. X in each, so I include it. Divide each term by bx, so bx squared divided by bx is x. 3bx divided by bx is 3. Take down this sign, which is subtraction. Look for the biggest number that goes into these two terms, which is 4. Now be careful, you're dividing by a negative, right? And you don't include the x as your common factor because x isn't present in both. So I'm dividing by -4. So this is -4x divided by -4. So because this is negative and this is negative, I know my sign should be positive, and I'm still left with the x. -12 divided by -4 is +3. Once again, you should notice your brackets are the same. Once again, if your brackets are not the same, you've made a mistake. And then I'm left with bx minus 4, and that's it.